Hi everyone, April 4th here, and this morning we met with the leadership team for those that could make it online, and I'm going to just briefly highlight the information that I shared with those that were able to join us. And we started this morning with the STEM TLC slideshow that I shared with the TLC coaches that were brought together a few weeks ago with STEM. And I will also put this on the statewide website so that you'll have access to all of these resources. And so a couple of things that we started with were just what do we know about where things are at right now and how STEM teachers or STEM coaches can support mathematics teachers in the districts where they're serving. And so we know that content and practices are equally important. So we need both the content standards and the standards for mathematical practices. And the best way for future STEM careers is to teach students science and mathematics well. We know the lower the skills of mathematics, the more likely a student is to end up in poverty or incarcerated. So we really want students to understand math well and to really understand their algebra well, because that is going to be the skill that they need to pass those college entrance exams. That doesn't mean that geometry and statistics and numbers and all of that's not important. It is. It's just we have the standards, and we now for 7 years in mathematics, and we know some things. So we know about our focus and coherence and rigor. And we know for students to be college and career ready, they need to understand algebra because they don't take remedial geometry and statistics in college. And so these are some statements from ASSM, from their work group. And one of the things they suggested is don't look for a STEM program that teaches algebra, but look for high quality algebra program that touches on science, technology, and engineering. So the first thing I shared with them is find the content standards and the standards for mathematical practices equally important. Then we talked about alignment, and alignment is really important. And when we talk about alignment, we're talking about focus, coherence, and rigor. It's not just, am I aligned to the standards? Are the standards present in my resources? But do I have the right emphasis? So when I talk to districts, the first place I take them is to ed reports, because I do not have the skill set in my wheelhouse to be able to look at all of the different resources to know that they are aligned. Achieve the Core has developed many tools that districts can use. So this is one place that I will send to districts when they look at alignment. And so lots of different things here to recognize alignment, improve your materials, conduct a textbook review, understand aligned assessments, lots of supports here. Also, they have professional development so that you can understand things about alignment, and their IMET tool. So this is a new tool that they have, and this is an instructional material evaluation tool. And so they have PD around this as well. And you see where it says set up the review process, and so to conduct a review. This is awesome because we didn't have these tools 7 years ago when the standards came out. So it's great that we have something and we all don't have to invent that. Also, it's important to know your shifts. So once you have aligned resources or curricula or whatever we want to call it, then know your shifts. So they have 2 4-hour professional development modules that can be adapted to 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hours professional development. And this is an introduction and a deep dive into the shifts. So we have some information around the standards and all of the information for DOK levels, vertical alignments, achievement level descriptors, which are like our proficiency levels, the evidence required that we leverage to know what, that's the information we need to get from students to be able to decide if their work is proficient or not. So lots of information here, and there's a ton of assessment questions in here. Like every single question stem that's available is in here as far as what the assessments will look at. And then this is a guide that if you open up, we use this to kind of unwrap the information in here to just give additional details and screenshots. And this is in a draft form, so we're still working on this. I gave them some resources on instructional practices such as Achieve the Core is a great place to find mathematics lessons, and the coherence map is an amazing tool. If you've not been to the coherence map, you'll love it. It has so much information. It connects the standards. It gives you tasks. It gives you progressions. It gives you assessment questions. They've added so much to it. ARCS from NCTM is another great thing. Engage New York is an aligned curricula that is open. Illustrative is great for tasks and unwrapping those tasks. And Unbounded Ed is great. It has instructional guides, and it takes the work of Achieve the Core, Engage New York, Illustrative, the progression documents, the coherence maps, and puts it into an instructional guide format. Next, I gave them some sites that have great performance tests. So there's the Mathematics Assessment Project, Inside Mathematics, and the Performance Assessment Resources Banks. And then there's this additional one, the Spark 101, where it gives you like some of the same problems, but through the different STEM lenses. So it might have a problem and say, through science, it looks like this. Through mathematics, it looks like this. Or here's a problem, and here's what it looks like through technology, and here's what it looks like through engineering, and things like that. Assessment, so we've got some stuff on formative assessment, additional sample items, so more, we should have like 1,000 different questions or question stems, and then our standard-based grading rubric, which is more appropriately referenced. Many use that word synonymous, and just when people say, hey, do you have standard-based grading and do you have these scales? I'm like, So anyway, so right now we're just like, I understand that this is reference-based grading, which I think most that I've talked to are doing. I only actually know of like maybe 2 schools where they're doing actual standard-based, where once a student's done with the skill, then they move on, that I know of. I'm not saying there's not others out there, right? This is just the information that I have at this time. Then also, I shared with them about the principles to action, what the guiding principles are, and the 8 effective math teaching practices that we'll be working towards with the Principles to Action Toolkit, as well as the Summer Institute. Also, we have the virtual coaching network for mathematics, where I'll send out a top 5. We do webinars that are live, and we'll do a recording of it. And then I gave them my contact information. So that was the first part of our sharing this morning. The second part of our sharing this morning was talking about when I'm talking to districts and the messaging and what I'm saying. And I hope that anytime that I share information with districts, that it supports what you all are doing in the field, because that is my goal. Really, all I can do is disseminate information and say, here are resources. Understand that it is never the intention in sharing resources to say one is greater than the other. Okay, that's not our role. That's not my role. That can be your role, but that's not my role. So my role is just to share great resources. So when I am talking with districts and sharing with districts, so one of the first places when they're like, hey, how do we know if something's aligned, or even if they want to know about a resource, I'll be like, do you know about Ed Reports? Some are like, yeah. Other ones are like, no. And so I'll be like, okay, so this is a great resource to start with. And so they did these different comparisons. Now, I'm not saying that they did it right or wrong, but it's work that's been done. How you choose to use that is up to you, right? I'm just saying, here's the work that's been done. That's period, right? Here's the work that's been done. So this is a way to go in and see what's aligned according to their criteria, what they're saying is not. And also a great resource, I was talking to a district earlier and they said, hey, we use Go Math. And so I said, oh, do you know about, if you go into Achieve the Core with Go Math, they have some guidance documents in here, how you can take that. And again, this is a wheel that's been embedded. You can go and use this wheel if you so choose. We can trust things from Achieve the Core because they were written and, you know, by student achievement partners, and Jason Zimba, which was one of the leads for the math. So we can, this is work that we know is aligned. So they worked with Go Math and they went in and said, oh, Like on this lesson, you need to add or you need to modify, and here's the rationale why. Or we need to delete this, and here's why. Or here, add this Engage New York module. Here's an additional activity. So again, it's a sharing of resources that we know that districts can use safely, that are aligned, and that are quality work that's been done. So after we have that conversation, and then we'll talk about Open Up, and I'll say, here's the history. It started with some of the state supervisors back in 2012. It's being funded by philanthropists. It is by illustrative mathematics. Right now we have middle school. We're hoping for high school next, and then K-5. It's that's the projection. We don't have anything firm on that yet until they do the press release. We won't really know. So then I'll say, okay, we have student materials, teacher materials, family materials. What grade? They might say, hey, we want to see 7th grade. So we'll go in and say, okay, there's several units. Let's look at a unit. Then when you go into here, you get the narrative and the blueprint. So you can go in and say, this is kindergarten, grades 1 and 2, grades 3, grades 4. So it takes that information in the progression documents and the coherence documents and kind of combines it into the story of the math with the standards for mathematical practices. Within a unit, at the end, there would be a performance task. And many of the different people that I talk to across the country say that on average, that's about appropriate. 1 per unit. You can have more, but about 1 per unit's good to start with. So then within a lesson, you'll see that the lessons are launch, explore, summarize. It's also very student-centered. It's written for 160 days, 45 minutes. We're not saying that's best practice. That's the reality of the world that we live in. It was important to the project to be student-facing. Required materials, standards of mathematical practices here, a warm-up, a narrative, a launch, supports for students with disabilities, supports for ELL. They worked with the SCALE project at Stanford. They try to embed technology when it's appropriate. It's more about not the I, we, you do in gradual release, but more about you think about it and decode it, work with somebody, and then we'll bring it back in the little mini summary. So it says arrange the students in group of 2, give students 2 to 3 minutes of quiet think time and a minute to share their response with a partner. If using this as a digital activity, have the students work in groups of 2 to 3 to complete the activity. They should have quiet time in addition to air time while solving the problem and developing their academic language. Are you ready for more? So it has embedded extensions in here, little formative assessments or synthesis where the students will share out. Then it moves into the different activities. It repeats this progression throughout. When not appropriate to have technology, they don't embed the technology. Anticipated misconceptions. And so then at the end, they are collecting information to try to hit that 45-minute target. They also have a student survey. What activity did you enjoy today? Did you not enjoy? The lessons I'm interested in. Did you talk about math with students? Did you write about math with students? And so they're collecting that. And then additionally, there's lots of other resources. Under the user guide and resources, there's professional development that's available, which you will have to talk to Open Up about. That is not my purview to discuss it. Again, this is a sharing of information about this particular resource. It's one model. It's not the only model. Illustrative mathematics could have done 6 different versions of this. This is intended, though, to be coherent. And so I get the question a lot, like, can we cherry pick this? Or what if I don't do all of the things? I don't know. I cannot answer that question because I don't have the skill set to look at this in its entirety and know what that means. So as far as like, I don't know if you move something in unit 1, if that messes up something in unit 2 or unit 6, I don't know. I don't have that skill set. And so my best recommendation would be to use it as it's written once and then make adjustments. So kind of the analogy of follow the recipe, make the casserole, taste it before adding salt. And then I will generally just take questions that they have. They might say, hey, can you open up the homework problems, or can you open up the assessment? So I just wanted to clear up any misconceptions or anything. Like, this is an example. Before we had this example, and I would be asked on the website, we have Engage New York as a comprehensive curriculum, because we have to consider things that all students have access and equity to it as a state level. And that's just really important when you're at the state level. And not all students have access and equity when we're talking vendor products, because that's dependent on money, and there's different budgets in different districts. And so that's not anything that we can parse out. Plus, it would be absolutely impossible for me to know like everything about, to even be able to say, again, I have certain skill sets, other skill sets that I don't have. So if there's questions or additional follow-up, please feel free to email me or reach out to me. Know that I'm always available, and I hope that whatever I'm sharing is supportive of what you all are doing in the field, whether that be at the colleges or at the AEAs or at the urban centers. And thank you.